2019 was an amazing year for the Atari scene because, well, ALTV was born. No, seriously, what struck me most were the amazing book releases we had this year. First, the last chapter of the Atari ST Demo Scene Anthology by Marco Bredin saw the light of day. Never ever before was the complete history of Atari bundled as well as in the books called Wheel of Atari by Carl Morris. Of course, we had the magnificent release Atari, A Visual History by Darren Doyle, covering all there is to know about the Atari 8-bit systems. And finally, we had this sturdy guy by Bitmap Books, SEGA Master System, A Visual Compendium. But why am I talking about Sega on this Atari channel? And no, don't worry people, I'm not turning ALTV into a regular retro channel. Even though I'm completely obsessed with the Sega Game Gear and its catalog of games. Some of you might remember me fixing a Game Gear in the Technica trailer. And the catalog of games available on the Master System is about the same as on the Game Gear. So I thought this book would be the perfect Christmas gift for me this year. But no, today I want to talk about this one. Atari, A Visual History by Doyle. And I'm gonna compare it to one of its competitors. I'm gonna check out both books and I'm gonna give my God honest opinion. A few weeks ago I did an interview with Darren Doyle for Atari Legend where he talked about the bumpy road he had while working on the project. And no, I'm not referring to the stress and hard work it took to finish a hobby project like this. I'm actually talking about the Atari scene and the people that held him back. They disliked the project because they thought it was a total rip-off of the Bitmap Books A Visual Compendium series. And while I get that, when you check out Darren's old work, you see he already used the same kind of formula. And for me personally, the whole visual thing started with the book you see behind me. But in the end, none other than Chris Wilkins of Retrofusion book fame stepped in to help get the Kickstarter through. And today, we are lucky enough to have this beauty of a book. But anyway, I was so amazed by this story and the fact that actual Atari lovers would hold back a product which was created for them in the first place that I had to check it all out for myself. Let's start with this beauty, my very first visual compendium by Bitmap Books. Bitmap Books was founded by graphics artist Sam Dyer, and when you look at his work, you can see he's a very talented person. The company has grown over the years and is now working with some of the best writers in the industry. People who worked for magazines such as Edge, Computer and Video Games, Mean Machines and many more. And this book has got Sega's official blessing, and that's saying a lot. Now let's check it out in more detail. I instantly loved the first pages. The foreword by Mark Cerny, who was working at Sega from 1985 till 1992, the pixel art of him. I love these little retro touches. Then we jump into one of the history sections. We get a brief history on Sega and its Master System on the following pages, before we get to the main event of these types of books, the games. The writing in this book is very diverse. Not only do we get a mix of guest reviewers and professional journalist opinions, some of the original developers and producers get their little space to talk about their game's history. Reviews are mixed in with technical information of the development of the game, its history, and sometimes even a personal memory of the writer, keeping it all fresh and entertaining to read. The game pages are all built up in the same way. The background consists of a blown up screenshot of the game in question, the text, and we get the release date, genre, publisher and developer. In between the games, there are also interviews added with game developers and Sega alumni. And also shots and reviews of the types of Sega hardware from its 8-bit era, like the different controllers, the Sega 3D glasses and much more. And speaking of 3D, Bitmap Books went all out with this release, and they added a little set of these. You can use them for some of the 3D shots in the book. Simply amazing stuff. Another nice and quirky feature are the gatefolds. And as a final note, There's also a very small box art section, displaying the art of a few SEGA classics. The quality of the book is simply amazing, with thick and glossy paper and a beautiful hardcover. And as an extra on this release, we have a cardboard storage box with cool 3D lenticular imagery. This book is an absolute must for every SEGA or retro game fan out there, and it's clear a lot of people were involved in its creation. Now, let's move on to Atari: A Visual History. The unofficial Atari: A Visual History is the very first book by Darren Doyle and his Grey Fox Books publications, and it's absolutely gorgeous. It follows the same formula as the Bitmap Books compendiums, but it's visually a little bit more structured. If that is a good or a bad thing, I'll leave it up to you. The book opens with a foreword by Douglas Crockford, an employee at Atari during the 8-bit era. We also get a brief history of the Atari 8-bit machines, which is very well presented. Before starting again with the main treat of the book, the actual games. There are a few differences compared to the Bitmap books, the biggest one being its presentation. Each game is presented with its original box art, a screenshot and a second blown up screenshot as background. Which one you prefer is of course personal taste, but adding a box scan to each game was one of the hardest things to accomplish in the making of this book, according to Darren. Every scan had to be digitally cleaned, and more importantly, a lot of the artwork was nowhere to be found on the net. So getting a hold of a scan almost turned out to be a death sentence in the making of this work. It did work out in the end, and this is an amazing treat for readers. Each and every page just bursts with vivid colors and is a treat to the eye. As for the game reviews themselves, they are very well written and they are fun to read, but there is less diversity compared to the Bitmap Books release. We do get some developers and producers talk about their own game, but there are fewer compared to the SEGA book, which was understandable because this was the first Grey Fox Books publication, but still it was a frustration for the author. In between the games we have also interviews with developers and Atari veterans and coverage of different Atari 8-bit related hardware. Quality wise, this book is simply amazing, with a sturdy and beautiful hardcover and nice high quality thick paper. Which one of these visual compendium styles is best? Well, that's personal, but to me, they both are. A more suitable question for this channel perhaps would be, did Grey Fox Books publication release the ultimate Atari 8-bit book? And I think they did. Well, we already reached the end of the episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll put all the links in the description below where you can find all the books discussed today. And for now, there's only one more thing to say. Stay Atari. It follows the same mother Dolomite mother bullshit. It follows the same formula. The unofficial Atari: A Visual History is the very first book by Darren Doyle and his Grey Fox Books publications, and it's absolutely gorgeous. It follows the same formula as the Bitmap Books compendiums, but it's visually a little bit more structured.